Well, thank you to all of you for your diverse and provocative readings of Suárez's central notions of metaphysics. So we are open to questions and comments, whatever, from the audience. Professor Fastigi.
Thank you very much. I'd direct this question to the last speaker, Matthew Vale. Thank you for those comments. I was just wondering, I still need to read your paper, so forgive me. But I'm a student of Giuseppe Pereira, and he always was fighting that idea of Suárez's metaphysics as somehow abstract and so on. Metaphysics has to be abstract, right. But it's always a cum fundamento in re, right. Always a foundation in reality. And there's one line from the metaphysical disputations: existentia ut existentia correspondit enti in se, vel in potentia, vel in actu. Right. So it's always a realistic metaphysics. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think one of the things that lends this sort of interpretation credence is precisely a citation like the one you mentioned, where at the end he says, ut in actu vel, ut in potentia. So Coltin and others would say, so Suárez thinks that ens in potentia actually is as this sort of distinct sort of shadow realm of being that's not at all dependent upon actual existence, and that he thinks this is the sort of abstract realm in which metaphysics deals. As you said, I would agree that ens in potentia, like potency is something that one predicates of an actually existing being. There are no such thing as ensia in potentia that are just out there. But it's a dimension of actually existing being that metaphysics has to be able to speak about in order to elucidate what is in fact the ratio of this actually existing being. So I would agree absolutely. Thank you.
Yo voy a hablar en castellano. Si no se me entiende, profesora Burlando puede traducir. En primer lugar, agradecerles a todos sus exposiciones. A Daniel Heider, además de su exposición, por sus valiosísimos sitios de web, que creo que todos hemos utilizado con sus fuentes. Your website. Cinepenner. Sorry for the confusion, but Daniel Heider contributed with me in a review of my university. Thank you. From Professor excuse me, Colacicco, I am agree with you in the double use of the causality and principle in metaphysical and theology. I don't know what you think about, that's it's a later question from the Greeks, a latens in theology with the cause of principle. It remonts to metaphysics, the fifth book of metaphysics, Archea and Aitia, and the theologians take this difference to explain the difference of procedencia from verbum to deo, pater, in theology, that is a principle, but not cause, in Latin tradition. But in Greek tradition, they use the two terms as synonyms. I think this is correct, your remarks that the use can be different in disputaciones and in the Trinitate. And I completely agree with your interpretation of Suárez. And when we read what's the objective concept of metaphysics, we read in Disputaciones that it's reale, that it's ens actualiter et formaliter et aptitudinari. Et. And we make read the difference in the 54 disputazione that ens formaliter, that is not form part of the whole metaphysics, that it's included by a meaning of his use to the theology. I agree with you, but that is a Heideggerian lecture of Suárez, and Curtin makes a lot of cause of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Profesor Leopoldo.
Muchas gracias, profesora Burlando. Buenos días a todos. Yo me voy a expresar en español, me siento más cómodo para evitar, porque al final, si no utilizas el canal lingüístico que te permite expresar 100% tu pensamiento, no llegas, y esto es delicado. A propósito, y no sé si me entienden todos en español, particularmente Matthew Vale, Vale?
Vale, sorry.
Vale.
Very Anglo-Saxon, Norman French actually, but anyway. My Spanish is not very good. I can understand maybe 30% of.
Yo puedo hablar en español, usted puede hablar en inglés y nos entendemos los dos.
Okay.
La cuestión está en que en la consideración del ente como esencia realis, y en ese sentido nominaliter sumptum, como dice Suárez, hay una derivación logificante de algún modo de tipo lógico del ente. Esto es muy conocido. Yo creo que por aquí entra una de las dos grandes tradiciones que arrancan de algún modo o están vinculadas de algún modo con Suárez en la modernidad, y es la Schulmetaphysik, es la metafísica alemana de la modernidad. En particular, respecto de la cuestión que le quiero plantear, la línea temática bien puesta de manifiesto por diversos autores, que de algún modo, no partiendo originalmente de Suárez, sino siendo más bien recogida de Suárez y teniendo su origen en Duns Scoto, prosigue por la modernidad, particularmente por la línea de Leibniz, Wolff, Baumgarten, Kant, y no iría mucho más, particularmente en el concepto de, usted lo ha dicho muy bien, considerar la esencia real como lo contradistinto de la nada, y en este sentido es un no ente, y este es el concepto de aliquid. Aliud quid, Suárez realiza una interpretación novedosa. Hasta entonces aliquid era principio de multiplicidad, aliud quid, otro qué. Pero a partir de Suárez, aliquid significa algo en general, something in general. En Kant, etwas überhaupt, es la consideración del punto cero del ser, que es aquí donde se percibe con una neta claridad la presencia de Suárez en esta tradición continental europea, que yo creo que es de muchísimo valor. Tendré ocasión de mostrar. Es una pregunta y un comentario a la vez, ¿eh? No es solo. This is not only a question.
Yes. Could someone translate quite precisely the question, just so I don't misunderstand?
Heider traduce muy bien.
Which is also interpretations in Aquinas, this is the second moment, conceptual moment in unum. It's this indivision in itself, the first moment, and second one, division from the others. And the question is the relationship in Suárez, these transcendentals, transcendental property thing, res, and aliquid. Professor Prieto offers, these interpretations that it should be reduced, this aliquid to res. But I think that it should be reduced to unum, because it contains unum, transcendental property. Unum includes this moment, this Aquinas moment, being different from the other.
Yeah, but
not
only.
It's connected with ends. Res is connected with ends because of the abstractions from actual existence.
Ens, res, aliquid son los tres pasos lógicos, en mi opinión, en este proceso de tendencia hacia la lógica presente en la interpretación ontológica de Suárez. Esto no es mío, esto es de muchos. Courtin lo dice muy bien.
Yes, but in Suárez, aliquid is reduced to unum explicitly.
Sí,
he says
sí,
this
sí.
is aptitudinal difference from the other. About God, we can predicate transcendental property of unum, even though there were no creatures, before creation, and still God, we could predicate the transcendental property because he would be aptitudinally different, potentially different from the world, from creatures, So it's explicitly reduced to the concept of unum, unitas, this alius quid.
Alius quid, sí,
yeah.
sí. Pero la cuestión que a mí me interesa desde la perspectiva lógica es particularmente la referencia del aliquid en un sentido novedoso, no en el clásico en referencia con la unidad o la multiplicidad en su contrario, sino como algo en general. Y esto es efectivamente la esencia realis como un posible, pensable, a thinkable object, a merely thinkable object. Y este es el camino que yo veo claramente, desde Suárez, Leibniz, Kant. Y no iría mucho más allá porque a veces hacen afirmaciones cuya argumentación no es suficientemente detallada, en mi opinión, particularmente en relación al idealismo alemán. Estos son afirmaciones mucho más gruesas y referirse a la ciencia lógica. Es verdad que Heider lo ha hecho, pero yo no he visto todavía ninguna demostración suficientemente detallada. Por el contrario, esta línea de la Deutsche Schulmetaphysik, particularmente en la interpretación del ente como res y como aliquid, como una no nada, una doble negación, toda la teoría kantiana del nihil, está en esta línea. Y esto es muy potente porque de aquí sale efectivamente lo que es una gran matriz metafísica, que es la que ha constituido el pensamiento desde Suárez hasta Kant. Y perdón por no tener un inglés suficientemente.
Yes, this phrase appears in Suárez, existentis extra nihil. So part of I think the problem with the way that Doyle reads this is that the definition that ens ut nomen sumptum is non nihil is only one definition that Suárez gives in the second disputation, and he gives 6 or 7 others of which are positive, and not simply this sort of negative logical relationship of what is most thinkable as sort of object. The others that he gives are like in one passage in the second disputation, the 4th section, he says, it's simply that thing by which something is, and then it's the same as quidditas, and it can't be defined any further. He also says that ens ut nomen essentia realis quidditas can be defined as the principle or radix of causes. So these are all other positive ways of defining what a being, an aliquid, a quidditas is. And the only objection that I have with Doyle is that he dismisses those other positive definitions and simply focuses on the sort of negative formal logical one as if it's the only one. And I think I would agree also that there is a there is a profound and I think totally salutary tradition of thinking of being as that most prior concept that behind which we can't think any further. I would just resist the idea that that's the only way that Suárez conceives of it. But I would love to talk more about this and learn more about this from you. But
the debate will continue. The debate about
Great,
this
yeah.
issue will continue. Then, is there any other last question for this table? Any comments? So we can end up.
May I have one?
Yeah, of course.
So,
We have one
what's
minute.
Suárez's motivation for this ens nominaliter subtum? Is it the reason that the actual existence is contingent, and contingent things cannot be, let's say, the part of the metaphysical scientific process, you know? So, and my question is, what's the difference between this up to exist, you know, this aptitudo existendi, and logical non-repugnancy, you know? So there is no equality. There is no equality between logical non-repugnancy, non-contradictions, and this aptitudo. There has to be something more, you know, in logical aptitudo to exist, you know. So since we can find, you know, second intentions, for instance, they are logically non-repugnant genesis, you know, species, but they cannot exist, you know, in actual existence, even though they are, let's say, non-contradictory. You know? So how would you define, you know, this extra moment, you know, conceptual? And how is it with the predication of this ens nominaliter sumptum of God, you know? It has to be predicated because God is the part of the objective concept of being, you know?
Yeah.
So if we abstract from the actual existence, and we know that actual existence is necessary feature of God, you know, how can we predicate this concept of ens nominaliter sumptum, even though it only presents, you know, it does not negate, you know, this actual existence. So perhaps it's only a very, very imperfect concept, you know, which we predicate of God. You know? So this is bundle of questions.
Yes.
Sure, just see if I can say something cogent. To the first question, I think the best way that I can answer this question, I think that in the second disputation, he gives two quite clearly different accounts of the genesis of the concept ens ut nomen sumptum and ens in potentia, whereas ens ut nomen sumptum is essentia realis, totally prescinded and abstracted from, totally undetermined with respect to actual existence. It's simply not included in the concept whether or not it actually exists. Whereas he says in 2.4:11 through 12, ens in potentia, however, is essentia realis plus the explicit negation of actual existence or actual entity. And in other places he describes both ens ut nomen and ens in potentia as this that they're apta ad existendum. But the difference would be that ens ut nomen would be an aptitudo ad existendum, where whether or not it actually exists is in fact undetermined or not included in the concept it's prescinded from, whereas in ens in potentia you would have an aptitudo ad existendum where its actual existence is explicitly negated, in which case I think based on the comments on finite beings before they've been created in the 31st disputation, he would say that such a being, such an ens in potentia, is simpliciter or omni non nihil. And then the second question with its predication to God, I mean, your guess may be as good as mine. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. I found very useful Rolf Dager's study, Suárez's Transzendentale Seinsauslegung und die Metaphysik-Tradition. You know, the need for essentia realis as the common concept of being rather than actuality is that it's simply the case that there's too great a disparity between the way in which God is in act and we are in act, such that if actuality were the subject of metaphysics, you would be dealing with two completely divergent concepts. They would already include such radically different concepts of what it is to exist, that you wouldn't have a unified science. Anyhow, but I don't want to hold up the train. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, any other comments? Please. Well, then we can go to the coffee break for this.